Good evening and welcome to episode 9 of Mouthwash. And before we get started, I want to do a little housekeeping here. I want to talk about our show and how it is a civil conversation. And we want you to be mindful of your comments. We want them to be nice, not rude. And we want everyone's opinion to be respected. So I'm going to go ahead and bring on our guests now. And let's get them in the right order. Our guests, our other hosts. We have Ashton. It looks like you're muted there, Ashton. So somehow I got you muted. Go ahead, unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Oh yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, there we go. Hi.
How are you doing? We had a week off to let things sort of settle down a little bit and ready for a reboot of the Mouthwash talk show, a minty fresh take on politics, not a minty irritable take on top politics. So everyone keep that in mind. And we welcome your comments. Audience, we are here for you. Jacob, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing all right, John. Doing all right. Enjoying this crazy weather again. You know, it's nice and warm now. A couple of weeks ago, it's snowing, and now it's like 80 degrees outside. At least it was up here.
Did the snow finally melt?
I think so. I could double check for you, but I'm pretty sure.
All right. Well, yeah, I know but it was like 80 today. I was like, wow, I sure got my vitamin D today. Well, hey, folks, we have a great show for you, and we have a little bit of a different format here because we have Thomas Breedlove, the Indianapolis skateboard journalist, back on here. And what we got was like 2 segments with him. We had 4 questions that I had him go out and ask. We're going to do the first two questions, and we're going to go ahead and get to that. I'm going to go ahead and roll the tape, and he's going to ask the peeps on the streets the questions, and then we're going to open up for discussion with our panel and the audience. And remember, keep it civil. Don't make me come smack somebody around. All right. So here we go. Let's listen to this little clip here.
How do you feel about the wall at the border?
The wall at the border?
Yeah.
It's bullshit.
Hey, Clarence, how you doing?
Doing good.
So my questions this week are, what do you think about that wall Trump was trying to build down there on the border?
So that to me that it was an asinine thing to do. It's almost like how when Berlin put up their wall. It's kind of like that shit. Like you don't like. There's so many people already here anyway. I feel like he was doing it out of spite because we are technically one of the richest countries in the world. I feel like he was doing it out of classist reasons, not just racist issues, but like some classist issues to show that he in this country, like it's a country that is built on a lot of different lies that equal up to what this money and the things that they had. This is one of the richest countries in the world, but also it's one of the poorest because we owe so many people everything. So I feel like that wall was stupid. Just a stupid thing.
So how you doing? What's your name, sir?
My name is DJ P. Short.
DJ P. Short. What do you think about the wall they were building down there, down on the border?
The wall on the border. Oh,
yeah, man.
God.
You for it, against it, impartial, don't care?
Honestly, I think it's really stupid. I mean, to really sit here and divide a whole nother state because of whatever you think, it's not even right. You're not giving the people a chance, honestly. Thank you, universe. You're not giving the people a chance to really have a voice. You're making a decision for them. Nobody asked for the wall. You say, we're going to build a wall and you got to take it. We don't want the wall. You can take your wall back, please. And as a matter of fact, stop doing this bad. Give everybody equal rights for real. We need love out here. Everybody out here struggling. We appreciate what y'all doing, but y'all ain't doing enough. We got so many homeless people out here on the streets. It's ridiculous.
Cal, how's it going, man?
Hey, so
Glad to see you got a job over at Tilt Studio.
Yup.
Down at the mall. Right on. Hey, I'm working for guy John Schmitz. He wants to know, what do you think about that wall that Trump was trying to build down there at the border?
I thought it was hilarious that he wanted Mexico to pay for it. He literally tried to build a wall to keep them out, and then told them, "All right, there you go, pay me." That was the funniest thing ever.
Do you know how many immigrants there are?
One moment.
Do you know how many undocumented workers there are in this country?
I do not, but I know it's more than the population of black people in America. I do know that.
Do you have any idea how many undocumented immigrants there are in this country? Most people I've talked to don't know.
There's a lot of unsolved cases.
No, just undocumented, just workers here. How many do you think, roughly?
I can't count.
You have any idea how many undocumented workers there are in this country?
Probably more than I think.
What do you think? There is a right answer, but I'm not going to judge.
I don't know. How many?
10.75 million.
Right.
Well, there you go. So
He was actually really close.
What's that?
He was actually close.
Yeah, a lot. Oh, how much do you say there? What's your numbers, Ashton?
Well, it's
far-
impossible to know how many because obviously it's not like the census, it's not you're turning in saying, hey, I'm here and I'm an illegal immigrant. It's estimated at about 12 million.
Okay, yeah, and I would say it's probably more than that. And I think from what I gather is they're trying to do in this current sentence, if we ever get the results, they've tried to do that. But if you're here undocumented, I don't know how happy you are going to be. Hey, count me, and then throw me out. So yeah, I don't know how that's going to go. So let's go with the first question that we have. What about the wall? That's sort of a, in the past with the past administration and the current administration sort of stopped that. But now we have a little bit of a border issue. So let's start with you, Ashton, on that. What do you think?
Well, I think Mark commented something that says, if people could overcome oceans and mountains, something built by man poses little problem. There's research that shows that walls are not effective. I believe it was San Francisco or San Diego was trying to do some sort of program. They funded some sort of program to build a wall on a border and see if that helped. It didn't help at all. There was no difference. And we see that on the portions of the border where they built the wall, there was a decrease in the amount of immigrants that crossed, but there was a general decrease altogether everywhere when they took that data. So it wasn't necessarily because of the wall. It wasn't a causation. It was just, kind of the general thing across the line that year. It costs a lot of money for no reason. There's a lot of legal problems with it, with property owners and federal protected lands and Native American tribes. There's all sorts of issues. We have a treaty with Mexico that, doesn't enable us to build in certain areas and hurt the river. So it's a mess. And I feel like it was just said off the cusp. It was one of those things Trump did where he was like, you know what, we're going to build a wall and, Mexico's going to pay for it. And he's just decided to say it one day without anything really to back it up or any research about how much it would cost, which is upwards of $20 billion. So I just think it was a bunch of nonsense, quite honestly.
Well, and obviously the people on the streets sort of agree with that. Jacob, do you have a differing opinion?
Yes, I do. Well, basically to kind of address the last concern that, that Trump kind of said this off the cuff. I don't think he would say it off the cuff if he actually implemented it. He actually did go about building a wall. For those of you that don't know, the structure was built. And what's kind of interesting is if walls supposedly don't work, I would venture to guess that I guess that a lot of Democrats would have to kind of retract a lot of their previous statements, because a lot of the legal basis for building the wall was formed in a bill passed in the mid-2000s about increasing border security that was passed by bipartisan legislatures, including people like Hillary Clinton, who was actually very tight on border security one time, and Barack Obama. There was talk about all of them talking about how we need to kind of deal with our border, deal with illegal immigration. The other thing I'll say about walls is walls do work, because why else do people build them? This is not just the debate that we have in this country, But a good example I can draw in a modern context in another country is in Israel. In Israel, they actually built a wall separating the Israeli Jewish settled areas from a lot of the Palestinian areas in the West Bank, because they were experiencing like increases in terrorism, all that kind of stuff from people coming from the West Bank and assaulting the state of Israel. Another argument I'll say about how walls work is look at what we just saw after January 6th, when Nancy Pelosi felt that the Congress was threatened. What was her first response? Was not only just to keep the National Guard in Washington, D.C., but was to build a wall. So yes, Mark's right in terms of, General Patton says, people could overcome oceans and mountains, something by man poses a little problem. He's partially right about that. And for the record, General Patton is kind of a person I've always been very interested in. So I'm very familiar with his opinions about different things. But at the same time, people coming across the border illegally are not General Patton. They're not going to assault the wall with like a military battering ram or a catapult, or have all these sophisticated ways to dig tunnels and ladders. Like certainly that stuff could happen, but we're not talking about people that have that capacity to do that on a regular basis. So to kind of summarize my position, I supported the wall. People on both sides of the aisle supported the wall basically until Trump got in and kind of made it a right-wing Republican issue. And walls do work because we've seen this throughout history. You can go back to the early centuries of different empires that would build walls around their cities and all that stuff. So, walls have been used in the past. They have been effective, and that's why we still build them today.
Yeah. But the idea of a wall, if we could build a wall that was a solid, huge wall across the border, which first of all wouldn't address the biggest problem of why we have illegal immigration is because people overstay their visas. But there's so many complications and legal issues with the wall that it's never going to be effective, and people are just going to move where they're immigrating from. The 1970 treaty that we have, and this was Obama trying to build fences in this area, but we have a 1970 treaty with Mexico that requires the floodplains of the Rio Grande to remain open on both sides of the border. And so that required the moving of the fencing so far back that there were too many holes to cover, and there were too many places for people to still get in, so it wasn't effective. And that was an Obama era thing that they tried to do. That wasn't a Trump era thing. But there's just too many issues. And if you really want to address illegal immigration, first of all, I feel the need to address when we're talking about immigration, we are a nation of immigrants. For the sake of this argument, I'm going to use immigrants and not colonizers. The only people who are not immigrants here are the indigenous people, the Native Americans. But to try and treat people who are oftentimes fleeing situations that are unsafe, to treat them like illegal aliens and things along those lines. No person is illegal. That's just the terminology that we use. So I want to make that clear that I don't believe any person should be illegal. Just for the sake of this argument, we're saying illegal immigrants. But it's the mass majority of those immigrants in our country are people overstaying their visas. So a border wall doesn't even address the majority of illegal immigrants in the country.
Well, nobody made the argument that a border wall is simply just going to turn off our illegal immigration problem altogether. I mean, that's not at all what I'm saying. I'm saying that it would reduce the amount because walls work, like I illustrated in my example. So I'm not, and like your issue, like with the Rio Grande River, that's just like a one-off scenario, because you got to keep in mind the river is also an obstruction to people coming across the border as well. And you can always do is you can just build a wall a few miles up the line, once they're over the river. So I think that argument doesn't really hold weight as to why walls don't work, in my opinion. And when it comes to illegal immigrants, I mean, we're not calling them that because they're illegal people. I mean, it's not illegal to be a person. What we're saying by saying the word illegal immigrant is that they broke our immigration laws, which is a fact because we do have very strict immigration laws on the books. And as long as those laws are in place, it is the duty of the federal government, as the arbiter of our foreign borders, obviously, to prevent people from illegally crossing those borders. We have to manage our immigration flow, because if we just simply let anybody come in that wants to come in, this country wouldn't be able to handle the amount of immigrants coming in, because everybody wants to come to the United States because it's the greatest country in the world. And I will say really that the immigration issue has really hurt a lot of blue collar workers, lower wage workers that see their jobs taken by illegal immigrants. I mean, I know from personal experience, and I worked in a few different places. I worked with people that were illegal immigrants, and they were good people. I have nothing against them personally. I think they're just the victims of a really screwed up system that we got with immigration. I don't blame the immigrants themselves. I blame the crazy laws and the lackluster enforcement that we have of them.
Yeah, and that's a good segue. That's a great discussion, but I want to move on to the next thing, which you can still expand on what you're saying and add this into the question. Spiro asked, is the uncontrolled entry into our country an issue? So, I mean, so you could just leave that into this conversation here. And then also I want to put put this on there. Should they be able to vote? That's another question that we see in the news and that the media is portraying of, okay, if you're here, you should be able to vote. So, which I think that encompasses what should people that are here working, paying taxes, as Mark says, Mark Small says, hey, the people are here without papers, they still pay taxes, sales tax, and all that, and they get no benefits. In fact, they used to, back in the 90s when we started this whole, let's back up a little bit in history. Ronald Reagan in about 1986, 1887 gave 3 million immigrants, hey, this amnesty, you're going to do this. And pretty much since then, we've had a steady flow of more and more people coming in. And the 90s it was tough. I mean, I remember when the local contractor, Bell Helmets, Custom Concrete, they came and they loaded up 40 undocumented workers and deported them. This is in the 90s, but you can't keep up. There was just too many people, too expensive to deport. And it's just slowly but surely got to the point where, hey, come here. You'll get paid because the jobs are there. You'll make good wages. At first, you got paid less, but now, your skills are good. You'll get paid. So those things that I just mentioned, let's weave that into the conversation of going forward here, just to, give a little point of interest there. So what do you think? Let's go, Ashton.
I mean, that's just, first of all, that was inaccurate. There's been a slow decrease in illegal immigration, in the illegal immigrant population since 2000, specifically from Mexico. There was an increase in 2007, but it's declined since then steadily. So we're not having a huge uptick in immigration. That's just not the case. It's declined. People don't want to come to America as much anymore. They'd much rather go to places like Canada or somewhere in Europe that has universal health care. So no, it's not a huge uncontrolled issue. And up to, like Mark said, it's estimated between 50 and 75% of illegal immigrants pay income taxes. They actually filed tax returns. That was one of the most interesting statistics I found in my research was that they actually file income taxes oftentimes with the IRS. So they pay their federal, state, and local taxes. And obviously, they're always paying sales tax when they're buying things from stores. So these are people that are paying taxes and not reaping any of the benefits. So we have to really look at these people and we say that they're uncontrolled, they're taking jobs. I have not been able to find anything that shows that. And if there's any research that does show that, I'd like to see it. But I haven't seen that anywhere and haven't been able to find that.
Well, I'll have you come out to some of my construction sites and then you can see the real research on how that works. And I lived through it in the 90s. And I'll tell you a quick story about, two mason contractors. The guys that two brothers taught me pretty much how to lay bricks. One brother had a son that took over his business. He did not hire Hispanic workers. He went out of business. I was in that high bricked houses, but I saw the writing on the wall. So I went to commercial where it was harder for these undocumented workers to come in and do this work. So I survived, but I hired Hispanics. they had social security numbers, they had their tax, I took taxes out. I've never paid anybody illegally. Whether those numbers are right, I mean, I've had some come back when I send in my e-file, because you send in your e-file with folks, and they come back, no good, no bueno. So they have to go. But a lot, I had several of those, but they went somewhere and worked. They didn't go back. So, that's where I think the numbers, the documents, where you're going to find any research on this, it's going to be skewed, because there is a whole market of work being done by undocumented workers. And that's why I wanted to talk about this subject. And I guess let's go back to, why do we have a surge on the border now? Why is that all of a sudden? If is a policy change in administrations? Which, that's sort of my thoughts. Jacob, what do you think about that?
Well, I think even from like interviews that I've seen where people have actually gone down there and interviewed some of the people coming across the border, some of them have actually acknowledged the reason why they're coming is because of the change in administration. So certainly that's out there, John. I don't think you're wrong about that. And we're really, but I want to kind of backtrack for 1 second and talk about this tax issue. Just because they pay taxes doesn't necessarily mean they're just automatically entitled for citizenship, because we also do have foreign workers that come here and they pay sales tax, they pay income tax, so it doesn't make them entitled to citizenship just as much as it makes the people that are coming here illegally entitled for citizenship. So yeah, I think with the change in administrations, though, it certainly has affected why more people are coming across the border, and also because a lot of things the Democrat Party has stated that they support, like basically giving them no-fault amnesty and giving them, possibly welfare benefits or free college or whatever, basically kind of giving them the same benefits that a natural-born American citizen or a legally immigrated American citizen would get. I think people are kind of coming and they're just like, hey, we'll take our chances. We're probably going to get legalized, so let's just have at it. So I think that's a lot of the attitude people are having, and quite frankly, I don't blame them for having that attitude. If somebody was telling me like, hey, you come to this country, break the law, and then we'll just forgive you everything, I would say, heck yeah, I'm coming. So
yeah, well, and I think on that side, a lot of people I know here that are undocumented for, as I said before we got started the show, for years, were basically victims of drug cartels. And pretty much it's live or die. If you're not with the cartel, you're not going to live. So, think about it. Let's just think about it from someone else's point of view. Say you're, south of Mexico City. It's like 48-hour drive to get to Indiana. So you're going to tell me you're going to just sort of start heading north, far as you could drive, leave your family, leave everybody, and come here to, just, that's how bad things are. You're willing to go somewhere that you heard was good. So, and now we're getting into the immigration thing and, how it's better. But my question is, how can it get so bad in these countries that people are willing to just pack up and go? So, Ashton, what do you think about that type of mentality? And can you sympathize with that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different reasons. Different countries are destabilized. Some of it is our fault. We go into different regions and let's bring them democracy. And then we destabilize them and don't leave any sort of resources to help them restabilize. So yes, Mark, I agree with Mark, which is a huge reason the drug cartel does not want drugs legalized in the United States, because it would stop that trafficking. Because people could just get drugs legally. So the drug cartel really opposes legalization of drugs in the United States. But I mean, as far as destabilization, there are drug cartels in different locations in South America that pretty much run those governments. And it's an unsafe place for people to be. So they're just trying to find somewhere safe for their families. And these aren't bad people. And I know, Jacob, you kind of said you don't have anything against the immigrants themselves. you have something against the way the United States deals with immigration.
Yeah, of course. I mean,
And-
I've known some of them personally, so yeah.
Right. And I
stand
think
by
that's
that.
just so important to realize, because there are a lot of people that demonize immigrants themselves. Immigrants are people. They are hardworking, trying to escape a bad situation the same way you think about what wouldn't you do for your family. And, you know, they're making dangerous journeys to get here, to try and get out of the country and the situation that they're in. And I mean, to do that legally in the United States is difficult, takes years, takes money that they just don't have, and time that they do not have to get their families out of these unsafe situations. So how do we as a country follow the principles that, you know, are on the Statue of Liberty? Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. How do we do that? How do we do it in a responsible way, and a way that humanizes these people that are just looking for a safe place to stay? And if we can be that, why not? You know, these aren't bad people that we're accepting into our country. Oftentimes when I talk to people about immigration, they say we're allowing criminals into the country. That's just simply not true. The conviction rate of illegal and legal immigrants is less combined, is less than the conviction rate for natural born citizens per 100,000 people. So it's just not an accurate argument. These aren't bad people that are coming in. They've been demonized so much in the media and with politicians, but these are just desperate people trying to find somewhere to be safe. And we really need to look at how we can allow that to happen and not turn these people away that are in need.
Well, but once again, though, when it comes to like the statistics, like with the crime and stuff, is I don't think with this argument we really should be basing everything on statistics. I know that kind of sounds illogical for a second, but let me take a step back and I'll explain my reasoning. You know, the statistics, like you said yourself, Ashton, are not always accurate on this. So we really don't know how many illegal immigrants are coming here as you know, and are committing criminal activity. Because I mean, a lot of times they hide their identity, like John said, or whatever. You know, so we can't really necessarily base this on statistics. And a question that I would pose to you, Ashton, is obviously, and I would hope and think you agree, I don't think we can take in the entire world in this country. I don't think that's possible. So the question I would have for you is, what are the limits that you would have on immigration? Because theoretically, if we just told the entire world, hey, you know, come here, that would really be a disadvantage to American citizens. Because if you just had a completely open borders, open immigration policy, for argument's sake, you know, you'd have people coming here from like other countries, professionals even coming and taking like higher wage jobs. Like I'll give you a perfect example. I have family over in Serbia because for disclosure's sake, my grandmother is an immigrant from Serbia. And so the thing is I know over there that doctors and attorneys that are my family, they make like maybe an eighth of what doctors and attorneys can make here. So if we had a completely open borders policy, those people would be rushing over here right away to try and get employment in the legal system, the medical system, many of the higher wage jobs. So we have to have a limit on immigration to an extent, how many this country can absorb. You know, we definitely want to try and take in as many people that would be a benefit to our society as we can handle, but there needs to be limits. So the question I have then, Ashton, I'll reiterate, is what is the limitation that you would put on legal immigration into the United States if we were able to theoretically fix the whole illegal system right now?
So theoretically, I think you realize that's a really big question. For me to just throw out a number, this is the amount of people we can allow in. I mean, every year the president, in consultation with Congress, sets the annual refugee admissions ceiling and allocations by the region of origin. And the Trump administration set that at 18,000 for the fiscal year 2020 and 15,000 in the fiscal year for 2021. That's really low. That's actually the lowest since the 80s. So that is way lower than it should be. The zero tolerance policy, I understand, is no longer in effect, but the zero tolerance policy was way overreaching. The Biden administration has pledged to reverse that and raise it to 125,000 refugees for the 2022 fiscal year, I believe. But I can't give you a number of people. I do think that we need to look at who is coming in and what is their reasoning for coming in. And we need to allow these people that are fleeing dangerous situations in destabilized countries to come in and not just turn them away. So we need to allow them to, I'm not saying someone from England should necessarily very easily be able to immigrate over here. It's not a destabilized country, but someone in a country that where they are in danger, their family is in danger, to allow them to come over here. So I am talking more so about refugees. I think we need to look at making that number much higher than it was during the Trump administration, which isn't much to ask because that's the lowest it's been in 40 years.
But for the record, you do believe in limits on immigration, right? You don't believe in a completely open borders policy.
Correct. I mean, I believe that there should be things that people have to do to get citizenship, but I don't think that they should be made to wait in the area until then. And I do think it should be much easier than it is. We're one of the most difficult places to, I mean, I don't know. I might be wrong. So I'm going to say this and I'd love you to correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think there's anywhere that has just open immigration with no restrictions.
No, there's not. And if you, I was actually getting emails from Australia to get in there, and you two folks would be very welcome in Australia, but I'm just a little bit too old. So they were basically looking for under 30 professional people that can be beneficial to the culture there. It's pretty much, you better have a strong resume or you're not going to, you can come vacation and go out back. But that's it. Another thing that we here in Indianapolis, there's a very large Chin from Burma, and that's on the south side here, and they are basically Christians that have been persecuted in a predominantly Muslim country. So there's a very big population on the south side of type of people. So when we think about the border, we think about just Hispanics and people from Central America coming up, where we're getting from all over the place. I guess my question, we're going to get ready to go to the next piece because you guys have done a great job talking about this. Is like, how do these other countries get so bad that we look so good? I mean, is this just sort of what people think or whatever? Because if you think about it, just our show a couple weeks ago, we're about ready to kill each other, arguing and being hateful and all that. So who would want to go to that? I mean, so Jacob, what do you think? Why do people have that ideal? Is it just our American dream?
Yeah, I mean, I think this country has a good reputation for valid reasons. I mean, we've had, it's been a great opportunity for people to come here and get well-paying jobs you wouldn't have had in your own country, like the reference I made before about people in my family's country of origin that came here because you can, make like, 8-9 times the amount of wages you'd make for a comparable profession in the old country in Serbia. So I think that's a big reason. It's economic opportunity. And one point I'll say that I agree with Mark on, even though we don't always agree on everything, I got to say that I was really agreed with Mark on is with the destabilization of a lot of these countries through our foreign policy. I mean, I think a lot of these pointless wars that we've done, like in the Middle East in particular, has led to a larger refugee contingent. And you don't see that as much here with the Middle Eastern refugees. It's more Europe, but I'm sure we get some coming here too, like Somalians or Iraqis or Syrians or something like that. So that's certainly a big problem that needs to be addressed. We need to have a less interventionist foreign policy because that destabilizes a lot of countries. But at the same time, like what you were saying, John, we also got to think about what's good for us because yes, in an ideal world, we should try to help everybody. I mean, I'm a Christian person. Do unto others as you would have done unto yourself, as the Lord would say. But, we have to think about the well-being of our country and our people here too, that if we're just letting anybody in, like at any time and having a very, very low bar to get in here, it's going to be more than this country can handle. And they kind of even recognized that back in the 1920s and 30s when more restrictive immigration laws were passed by Congress, because we had so many immigrants coming in the late 1800s and early 1900s, my relatives included in that category, that it was just a lot for this country to handle. I mean, it didn't mean these people were bad people, but it just meant that we couldn't always absorb all these people because maybe there just wasn't enough jobs for all of them and enough for our own citizens. So there does need to be some limits. We do need to reform our foreign policy so we don't destabilize as many countries, but ultimately we do have to think about our own interests and our citizens' interests first. You know, I mean, it's good to think about everybody else, but ultimately we got to think America first and American citizens first.
Yep. Okay, Ashton, I'll let you do that. Then we're going to the next segment, which we've covered a little bit of that. So the American dream, is that why?
I think that for a lot of places, the American dream is this ideal that has existed in so many ways, but actually so much of it is harmful. You know, we are better off than a lot of places, and I'm not going to say that. And I was actually just talking to my fiance about this earlier. I have a lot of love for our country. And just because I criticize things that our country does or the way that our country is run doesn't mean that I am not patriotic and doesn't mean that I don't love the country that I live in. It means that I love it so much that I want what's best for it and for the citizens of this country. And I think that what we're doing right now is doing a lot of disservice to Americans. And we could be doing so much more as a country, not only for ourselves, but for those around the world. We like to think that we're the leader in so many things, when in actuality, we are not. We are not at all. We're not a leader in education. We're not a leader in healthcare. We think we are. Absolutely.
I think that's part of our American confidence, our American, like, we'll kick your ass. So, right. I mean, but, you know, half the time, that's what's important. Well, that great discussion. Let's go to our next point, because I know we could keep talking. I'm going to run the next clip. It's about 3 minutes. We're going to talk about how hard is it to become a citizen and one of the citizenship questions. So here, let's take a look at this, and we'll come back and we'll discuss.
How hard do you think it is to become a citizen in this country?
Well, considering that I am a citizen of this country, I don't necessarily know, but I do know that during the pandemic, I'm without my birth certificate, and I'm also without my social security card. And it has been very, very hard to get both of those. Even though I was born here in this country, it's very hard for me to get those. So I can only imagine how hard it is for people to become citizens here of the United States.
How hard do you think it is to become a citizen here in this country?
For a person that's not of an American ascent and of another nationality, I think the things that they have to do in order to become a citizen here is kind of ridiculous, because if you come from another country and you want to come over here, you shouldn't have to jump through hoops. It should just be easy. So it's pretty hard, you know, all the paperwork that you have to do, and then you have to sit, and then you have to wait, and then if it doesn't go through, then you go back. So it's like you should have never left.
How easy do you think it is to become a citizen in this country?
I think it's fairly hard.
Yeah?
Yeah, I knew somebody back on the street trying to become a citizen.
Where are they from?
New Mexico originally. He came here illegally. I haven't seen him in about a year.
Yeah? You think it's harder for a homeless person to...
Definitely. He was homeless, and before anything, he needed his ID. And to get an ID, you have to have a place to have it mailed to. But that's what he was trying to get with the ID. So sometimes it's just an endless loop.
How many U.S. representatives are there in this country? Any idea?
That I don't necessarily know either, and I feel like I need to know these questions.
You would need to know this question if you were trying to become a citizen.
See, and that's why I don't know. But yeah, I don't know.
All right. Well, thanks for chatting.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any idea how many U.S. representatives there are? Most people weren't able to answer this one either. But you guess what? If you're trying to become a citizen, you have to know. It's one of the questions.
Nah, I don't know.
435. Do you know how many U.S. representatives there are in this country? 435.
Oh, wow. See, this is things they don't teach us in school.
Well, that changes. That number changes based on population. I appreciate you talking to me and taking the time to share your opinions and thoughts.
No problem, sir.
Yep. Well, take care of yourself, man. I'll see you around, brother.
Right on. Later, man.
And there you have it, John, from the streets of Indianapolis and the studio in Arrowhead Estates. I'm Tom Breedlove, the Indianapolis skateboard journalist.
And hats off to Thomas Breedlove, the Indianapolis skateboard journalist, for getting those questions for us. And hopefully he'll be able to continue to get out. It's obviously weather related, and we are a little bit on a time crunch from week to week. But I do think that he adds quite a bit, of what the average person is that's downtown thinks about things. So, I mean, we've covered this a little bit, but let's start with Ashton on here. How do you think it's hard, too hard? What's your opinion on citizenship? What could be maybe different?
It's super difficult to become a citizen. There are so many stipulations, and one of those that I think a lot of people don't know about is that you have to have resided in the United States as a lawful permanent resident for at least 5 years. And I think that's really interesting because it's just this huge, long process. On average, it takes 8 years to become a citizen of the United States. That is a really long time. One of the stipulations is that you have to be able to speak, read, write, and understand the English language. I don't think we should make language a requirement to live in the United States. I think that's an unreasonable thing to gatekeep, is what language someone speaks or is able to speak. That also is kind of ableist, in my opinion. For someone who I am terrible at learning foreign languages. I tried, full disclosure, got a 14% on my Spanish exam in college. I don't know what it is. It's just over my head. I can't do it. And there's the questions that are asked on the citizenship exam are things that, as you saw, if you sat down and asked random people that were born here, they don't know that. I understand, generally talking about here are the laws that we have in our country. But some of the questions that are asked are just ridiculous.
Here's a couple. Ashton sent me these in the private chat, so I copied and pasted them there. Name one writer of the Federalist Papers. How many amendments does the Constitution have? I mean, these questions are history test questions that you have in the 8th grade, basically. So I don't hardly remember college. So let's go back there. And then here's another one. We just had the one, number 3 would be how many in the House of Representatives, how many justices are on the Supreme Court, and 9. When was the Constitution written? 1776. I could probably get into Florida.
The Constitution was not written in 1776.
See, then I'm out. Send me back to Russia, wherever the hell I came from. Terrible. So wait, this is where I put this down on the thing. While we try to do most accurate information, sometimes we encourage you to do your own research. So when was the Constitution written?
1787. September 17th, 1787 was when it was signed.
Oh, yeah, we got mad in 1776. It took us 10 years to put it on paper. I got you. So that's good. So I'll continue to put a couple of those. Oh, yeah. So look, Mark Small. Yeah, smart, like lawyer and stuff. I'm going to ban him from the show. So, look, he's like Mr. On It. He could pass all the citizen.
He's an encyclopedia. I like it.
Thing. So what do you think, Jacob, about how easy it is or how difficult it is?
Well, if we're just talking about solely the questions, I mean, maybe you could tweak some of the questions, but actually, in my opinion, I think that really average American citizens should know a lot of this stuff, especially like the one about the Supreme Court justices and what year the Constitution was written and different aspects of how many amendments there are. I think that's a good thing for our people to know. And I think that I think it's really essential that we know our rights so we can protect our rights. So I mean, honestly, instead of maybe dumbing down the citizenship test, I would argue more that we should be educating Americans more about what's on the citizenship test, because these are important subjects. I mean, they really are.
John, he told you shouldn't be a citizen. You got your Constitution wrong.
I shouldn't be. I agree. I shouldn't. I would gladly go to, say, Nicaragua or wait, was one. There's one I'm down. Costa Rica. That's the one where you can pick what climate you can live in, and expatriates can go. Oh, I may have done too much research on this to see about going somewhere. But you know,
I think
you're talking his language on education. I mean, that's
I think I slightly agree with you, Jacob. I don't. So some people don't. Some people just don't test well. I think it's unreasonable to ask people that are coming to this country to do things that we don't even ask our own citizens. Now, I do think that it is important, if you are going to immigrate here, that you understand laws and your rights. I do agree with that. So I think one of the questions on the citizenship test is, what are one of the two longest rivers in the United States? Like, that is not, I don't think that's important to citizenship at all. Now, I think talking about what the different amendments are, I think are something that we should be talking about, and making sure citizens know, not as a stipulation for them to enter the country, but for their own benefit. They should know that, you have freedom of speech, you have freedom of religion, freedom of assembly. If a soldier comes up and knocks on your door and says, "Hey, I'm going to spend the night here," you don't have to let them. So let's just make sure people know what their rights are when they come into the country, so that they're not taken advantage of. And I agree that we should know these things. I mean, this is our government, and it's sad that a lot of people don't. But I think that we need to focus on it as an effort to assimilate them to America and a new culture with new rules. But I don't think we should make it so ridiculously hard for them to get citizenship.
Well, certainly we shouldn't be having stuff on there like the longest river or something. I give you that. I'm just saying, I think when it comes to issues, especially like the Constitution, I mean, like I said, it's important for our people to know it as well as people coming here. Because when you think about it, I mean, when they're coming here, it's almost like they're entering into a contract of sorts, coming into a new country and adopting a new citizenship. It's almost like you kind of have like some, what am I getting into? You kind of want to know that stuff. Like, what is this country all about? What are the laws that governs it? So I really think they should at least try to get some sort of basic understanding of our laws and the way we do things before they're approved for citizenship, those kind of things. So just maybe have very pinpointed questions. Maybe like having something like what date the Constitution was written. Maybe it's not as relevant, because I'll say one thing: when I tested in school, I mean, I was never good on memorizing dates, and I'm a history buff. I know a lot about history, but if you try to ask me, what year did Rome fall? I'll be like, sometime in the 5th century. I can't give you the exact year, maybe 476, 475, 477. I'm just not good at that kind of stuff. So yeah, there should be more questions that are pertinent to knowing your constitutional rights and your Bill of Rights, so you know what you're getting into before you come into this country and before you're approved. And the other thing I'll address was what you said earlier about the English language. I mean, I think a working knowledge of English is actually a benefit to the immigrant more than it is like a harm of us, quote unquote, requiring it. Because I know actually a lot of people that did come here legally that really don't speak English that well. So I don't think that rule is really that enforced anyway, because just from anecdotal experience, I can say I know a lot of legal immigrants, Hispanic, non-Hispanic, mostly Serbian, because I know a lot of Serbian immigrants, obviously, being active in the Serbian community, that don't really speak English so well. And I would say if you want to function in this country, while English is not technically the official language, unlike what I would like it to be, it's going to be extremely hard to function as well as you could in this country if you don't at least have a working knowledge of English. We're not like countries in Europe where people speak like 5 different languages. My grandmother grew up speaking 4 languages. You come here, people speak one language and maybe half of another language at best. So you got to know English if you want to really succeed in this country.
Well,
I think making things requirements, I think that's where it gets me. I think being like, hey, here's some resources for you to learn English. Maybe it can help you assimilate better. That is one thing, but saying, and I know you're saying that it's obviously not a super strict requirement because you've met people who don't speak English very well. But I think that saying on the website, for immigration, like this is what is required for you to become a U.S. citizen. I think that we really need to look at those requirements. And, I think that 8 years is a really long time to become a U.S. citizen. That is a very long process. And I think that I saw Spiro had said something about if the USA is to maintain her position as a world leader of peace and civility, there should be high standards. I hate to break it to you, we are not a world standard for those things. If you look at what other countries say about us outside of here, Europe, Asia, Africa, we are not that standard. We think we're that standard. We are not that standard. So
Don't tell
I think
anybody.
we would love to believe that we are, but we are not. So I think we need to just really look at human decency here. And like I said, I know, Jacob, you agree with me that it's not the immigrants, it's the immigration policy that we need to look at, because it's not, the people are not the problem. It's the policy that's the problem. So how do we work on it?
Well,
Wow.
yeah.
And,
One thing I'll just say once again, when it comes to also the English language stuff, I mean, I don't necessarily, it's kind of a touchy subject. Like, I mean, I don't think they need to pass like, college, level, professor type English. But I think once again, it comes back to this whole debate of what's best for us as a country. If we just, let in a bunch of people that can't even say hello, what kind of jobs are those people going to get in this country? The only jobs you really are qualified for, if you don't speak the common language or you don't have a translator constantly with you, is maybe digging ditches or mowing the lawn or, doing some sort of menial labor that doesn't involve a lot of communication. And while that did happen in the past, like you had a lot of immigrants, up here, for example, that would go work in the steel mills and not really have to speak that much. Even those people would still usually have a working knowledge of the language. So I think if you have any language requirement, it should just simply be a working knowledge, not even necessarily a college level fluency, because not everybody's good at languages. I understand that, but we got to think about what's best for our country again too. Where are we going to put these people that don't have the college, or don't have the English knowledge at all?
Well, and that's good. And I agree with you, Ashton, about the language thing. I mean, I've had Hispanic workers for almost 30 years now, and I should be better. I can communicate. I know, the words to get bricks laid and concrete poured. And what I've noticed is people want to do this. And, one of the questions we didn't really talk about was assimilation. That was one of the things I heard. You don't hear that so much. We want them to assimilate, and language is an assimilation issue. I know I go to Hispanic birthday parties with, my friends. I have a lot of Hispanic friends, and I go to their birthday parties, and that next generation is already on their phone. They already think their mom and dad aren't the coolest people in the world. It's basically one generation, and they are Americanized, whether that's good, bad, or otherwise. But that's how it goes. So some of these myths that have been portrayed, they're taking American, a lot of this stuff has really proved out to be not so true. So that's one of the things that I've noticed in my time around, people that are here and have come for a better life and have made a better life. So I think it's time that we get to the ending of our show. It has been such a good and civil conversation this evening. I love that we were able to get through these talking points with our audience, all singing Kumbaya, holding hands, and all that good stuff. And I think we covered some ground here on this situation. Did we solve all the world's immigration problems? No, but did we have a good discussion about it? Yes. So I'm going to go back. We do not have any upcoming conspiracy theory or anything like that, but we are going to go over over the 3 bills and a lie. And I will not play the intro of me being goofy on that. We're just going to get to it because we're getting short on time. So let's see. Let's go with this one. Who was this one? This one was, this was mine. If you're a type of person who gets a laugh out of mooning other folks, you might want to keep your pants on. Dropping your drawers is a chargeable offense that can bring a steep fine. Guess what? That one's true. It's from Greece. You thought it'd be something from America, but since we're talking about immigration, I thought I'd go over to Greece and get this one. So, hey, mine's true. So if you pick mine, not so much. How about this one? Here we go. Oh, this one's yours, Ashton. Take it away.
No person shall sell or possess living baby chicks, ducklings, or other fowl or rabbits which have been dyed or colored. Violators shall be fined not less than $100 nor more than $500.
Where's that one from? Is it
That's
true?
It is true, and it's from Kentucky.
Yep, Kentucky, our buddies. Okay, so last but not least, there we go. And I think you're not going to be able to get away with yours not being a lie. So take it away, Jacob.
No eavesdropping, state law. Every person guilty of secretly recording in any building with intent to overhear and to repeat or publish the same to injure others is guilty of a felony.
We just changed a couple things. A lot of that's true. Was that from, where was that from? Oklahoma or?
Yeah, I believe it was Oklahoma or one of the southern states, maybe Tennessee, if I remember correctly.
Okay, that is great. So let's see if we got any last one. Oh, here we go. Spiro Heraclianos. That's not Greek, is it? Spiro, that's
definitely
he's Greek. I did one quick story about Spiro Heraclianos and George Sturgiopoulos. He owns the Giorgio's Pizza and the Greek islands. When I was campaigning, I have the giant S that was in the RCA Dome that was either the Colts or Indianapolis. And they were, George had brought down pizza for people standing in line, which I guess is illegal in Georgia now. And Spiro was there, and they were on the S talking Greek. It was the coolest thing ever. And that, sort of sums up our country. Both guys can speak very good English and very good Greek from what I witnessed that day. So any closing comments, Ashton, for our audience?
No, I think that we pretty much covered it today. We were all pretty civil. I am excited to talk about, we're doing separation of church and state next week, right? One of my favorite things to debate. So I'm excited for that.
I really think it's past. I think it's one of the, nobody really talks about that much. And our guest, Micah Beckwith, he's an ex-preacher that got into politics. So I thought, hey, you know what? By the way, Micah will be on WIBC tomorrow. Rob Kendall, he's in for mock. I mean, so we'll see how that goes. I'm going to tune in, and then he'll be our guest next week. So tell your friends, share our stuff here. And then Jacob, give us that parting comment.
I would say, honestly, I think we tackled this one pretty well, kind of staying more focused on the laws themselves instead of just kind of getting into, oh, this immigrant's good or this immigrant's not so good, just kind of staying focused on the actual meat and butter of the issue. I'll also say that I'm looking forward to next week's topic very much, because I think this is a topic that's really debated a lot in American life. And I certainly have my opinion about it. I mean, I'm a very religious person, but I'm actually planning to do theological studies for a postgraduate degree. But I also, I respect our Constitution, and I want there to be a good balance between, how the founders intended for the Constitution to approach churches and establishment of religion.
Very good, very good. You guys are great. You're welcome to go to Australia because you fit the bill for that. You're intelligent, you're young, you're what they need down there. And guess what? You can't have a gun, I think, something like that. So, you'll be safe. But
hold on, John, real quick. Mark, I see you over there. If you want to message me on Facebook, get my information from John. Maybe you can hook me up with some of these things you want to make sure are touched on next week.
Yeah, Mark is chomping at the bit to get on there. And I don't know if I'm ready to referee that one. So, but that is it. And we do appreciate our audience. I think this is a very good show. Everybody in the audience, put yourself a star by your name. Tell your friends about us. And hey, if you got somebody that wants to come on the show, let us know. We're willing to chop it up with anybody because you know what? This is Mouthwash, a minty, fresh take on politics. So with that, I'm going to bid everyone adieu, and you have a great week. One last plug. Tomorrow night, Do Something Indie. I have Drew Hicks, who is an excellent story of redemption, has 250,000 followers on Facebook. It's like, wow, how do you get that many? But just a great, and he works with addiction and recovery, and it's a great story of a guy that should be dead that's out there getting it. So, and that's going to be on the Do Something Indie page tomorrow at 8. And thanks for joining us. And join us next week. We're going to talk about Ashton's favorite subject, separation of church and state. And she's going to have Mark Small with a little earpiece in there telling her stuff. It's going to be awesome. Jacob, you better study hard, and we're going to get this done. Everybody, peace out.